Welcome to Pitstop with me, Jaco and Merwe. I'm joined by Mark Jones and Charl Bosch this week. Last week we talked about cherry, Mark's trip to China where he saw some interesting cherry models. Now, on the subject of cherry, of course, they've got two sub-brands that's already been launched in South Africa. The one is called Omoda and the other one is called Jaecoo. Now, Charl, I'm going to ask you again, just to put on the table to eliminate any kind of confusion here, because we're going to get into J's, into C's, into all sorts of things now.
And O's.
Well, that's the thing. So the first one of these cherry sub-brands who came to South Africa was the Omoda.
Yes.
With the C5. And then Jaecoo has just released the J7, but just before that, we had the Omoda C5 GT and the electric E5.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what we've got at the moment on the table in South Africa. Now, over to Mark. What are we adding to this?
Right, so let's start with the Jaekoos because the J numbers seem quite easy at this stage. J7 plug-in hybrid was shown at the Beijing Auto Show.
Our first J7 which just came out, which engine does that have?
Well, the 1.6 TGDI petrol engine from the Tigo.
That's just internal combustion engine.
Yeah, completely.
Okay. So this says
Now they've got a plug-in hybrid coming.
So they've almost skipped the traditional self-charging hybrid. They've just gone straight.
It would seem so.
Yeah.
They just, I don't think they wasted their time with that technology.
No, not at all.
And that's where they get this whole, just like Chery claiming this 1200k range thing, which is big for them. And then J8, which I believe is imminent in South Africa.
Yeah, final quarter of this year.
Correct. And that was their basic unveil. So that was the two models they said, great. And we've just been exposed to it. But again, we were walking around, kind of looking at things. That's all we saw. And there popped up this little thing called a J6. And we're like, okay. And it looks just like a Suzuki Jimny.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Chinese people, but it is what it is. It's a proper copy. Very cute. And it's all electric.
Yeah.
But it really looks cute. It's funky as hell. If Jimny's going to find a following, this little thing will find a following. Full electric. And I believe it's coming as well. Then we happened to be given a bit of a preview, but not under the same badge without getting confusing. The J9 that's going to be on its way, which is a large SUV, which is currently the Exceed RX.
Yes.
Just to explain that Exceed is yet another sub-brand, but one, fortunately, they're not going to bring to South Africa.
Well, at this stage, not.
But they can rebadge them as Jaekoos, which they're obviously doing.
That's exactly what it is. So J9s are rebadged Exceed, and the J6 all-electric cars are rebadged R-Car, which is the other sub-brand in China. So thankfully, maybe they're sparing us from even more brands. So we're dealing with Jaecoo and Omoda, or Omoda and Jaecoo, as they like to be known. And then, of course, Omoda had nothing really to show because there's nothing going on there at the moment other than the C5, which you mentioned, the ill-fated GT, which was not well received, and the E5, which I believe there is one running around here already. It is coming. But what was probably more interesting from a South African perspective was that there is going to be a entry-level C5 that should be here fairly soon. Sort of, would I dare say, budget-friendly version. It's not it's going to thankfully be removed. Some of the gongs and bongs and safety stuff that's highly expensive. Electronic stuff will be removed. Engine should stay the same. But there's talk of it being sub 400, maybe even 350 grand. And that should make for those numbers to jump up.
Speaking of that price, that's exactly what I'm getting to now, Charl. This business of sub-branding everything. And then obviously populating every sub-brand. Because we're talking about now a proper handful of cherries. A handful of Jaekoos coming, a handful of Omodas. Somewhere on the pricing spectrum, these guys are crossing.
Yeah.
Is it, is the term cannibalization fair to use, the fear of?
I think it's definitely, if you look at some of the pricing of the J7, for instance, Jaecoo J7, there's some of them that overlaps with the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro. Now, the Jaecoos are all based on the same platform, as Mark mentioned, the iCar brand. They're just rebadging it every single time. The Omoda C9, that's called the Exceed RX in China. So there's there's going to be some worry that this might eventually happen. And if you were speculating a couple of years along the line, I mean, we've seen it throughout history with your bigger car brands, GM, Ford, everybody rebadging certain vehicles. Those brands will eventually die because people are confused. They don't know where the brand stands. They don't know where this one fits in and what is the purpose of this one. So I don't want to sound rude or whatever, but if one of those brands maybe disappears in a couple of years' time, it won't come as a surprise because people don't like to be confused. They want to have things that are simple. They want to know where it stands. So I definitely think that there might be some cannibalization of certain models.
Talking of that, which was, again, weird. I mean, Omoda, you got these brands upon brands, and Omoda at the Beijing Auto Show showed nothing, yet at a business conference, and then we got called into the world premiere global reveal of the C7.
Yes.
Completely separate to the show, with those 2,000 same guests, which was beautiful. But there is yet another car with plug-in hybrid capability, which is, again, just going to keep filling these slots. And the Chinese way, or the Chery way to us that was being explained, they're going to keep filling slots. Yeah. I think more than cannibalizing their own, they're hoping to cannibalize everybody else.
Yeah.
So maybe if you don't want a Chery or whatever, and you look at a Jaecoo, as long as you're not looking somewhere else.
Because the thing is that what I said previously is that this whole rebadging thing is not new to China. It's not limited to Chery either. It's the other brands as well. I think the other problem, the thing is that the majority of some of the Jaecoos and the Omodas are sold as Cherys in China. The Jac7, for instance. So maybe it's sold as the Chery Tanzo 6 or something in China. But I think they're trying to concentrate now more on export markets. So leave the Cherries and the Omodas as with Chery badges in China, and then for export markets, because they don't know that the cars are sold as Cherries in China. So have an export market focus where you sell these brands.
Yeah, I would think the difficult part's going to come in for the local dealers who has to sell all of these things. And yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, I would think the head honchos over there at Chery, they're going to approach it like they say the Scottish does with whiskey. They say you can drink whiskey with cream soda, just buy whiskey. So it's a case of just buy a Chery. We don't care. Yeah.
The case of.
And we had lots of Chinese whiskey there, which I proceeded to mix with watermelon because I thought it was pretty vile, but it did the trick and assassinated a few people. But it was pretty entertaining.
Okay, speaking of watermelons, we also especially Charl is on the matter of Chery bringing a bakkie where you can do a whole load of watermelons on the back of it. But that's a discussion for a whole other day.
I don't think that's going to help, yeah.
So yeah, that's it from us. We'll be getting hopefully the Jaecoo J7 soon, and then we'll tell you about that and all the other Jaecoos coming in and also the Omodas. But for now, that's it from us. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Pitstop. You can like this podcast. If you go and click the like, you can share it, and please follow the Citizen News' YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. I'm Jaco van der Merwe. I was joined by Charl Bosch and Mark Jones. Thank you.